$800 a month. That's what some retirees are actually living on right now. Not in a cardboard box, not in their kid's basement, not in some depressing studio apartment with a radiator that screams at night and a landlord who disappeared after the lease was signed. Real homes, real peace, real towns with porches and pie, and neighbors who know your name and bring things over without being asked. And here's what nobody told you. You've been sold a version of retirement that requires a savings account with 6 zeros, a financial advisor who golfs on Wednesdays, and one of those active living communities where everything smells like chlorine and the activities director is 23 years old and enthusiastic in a way that starts to feel aggressive by Tuesday. But what if that whole picture is the scam? What if the actual retirement loophole, the one the brochures don't cover, the one the financial industry has no incentive to mention, is a collection of small American towns that the rest of the economy forgot to ruin? Towns where the rent is $400 and Social Security isn't taxed, and the government stopped inflating everything into oblivion sometime around 1987 and just never went back. That's what we're doing today. 10 hidden towns where your Social Security check doesn't just survive, it breathes. It has room. It might even leave you something at the end of the month that isn't anxiety. One of these towns sits under a boulder held in place by a literal chain. Another gets so cold that snowfall statistics make Anchorage look mild. One froze its property taxes decades ago and never unfroze them, which either sounds like paradise or a clerical error, depending on your perspective. And one, the number one town on this list, is named after the most romantic thing on the calendar, exists in a place your GPS calls a challenge, and will stretch your Social Security farther than half the state of California combined. Here's the fair warning before we start. This isn't a surface-level listicle. This is the kind of information that most people never hear, because most people aren't supposed to hear it. The towns that don't make the brochures. The ones that don't have a content strategy, or a tourism budget, or a sponsored post. The ones that just exist, quietly and stubbornly, as places where the math actually works for people who need the math to work. Choosing the wrong retirement town could cost you thousands of dollars a year in taxes, living costs, and quality of life. Choosing the right one could be the most consequential financial decision you make in the next decade. No pressure, let's break it down. Number 8. Bonners Ferry, Idaho. Bonners Ferry, Idaho has a population of approximately 2,700 people, enough to fill a moderately sized wedding venue, not enough to fill a Costco food court on a Saturday, which is fine because there's no Costco and the nearest one is in another state. This is a frontier town in the genuine sense of the word. Not the aesthetic sense, not the wood panel coffee shop and the flannel as fashion frontier. The actual frontier, the northern panhandle of Idaho, where the Kootenai River runs through a wide valley surrounded by mountains, where the wildlife is not decorative but genuinely present and opinionated, and where the police blotter has, apparently, listed escaped goat as a public disturbance, which is either a sign of how safe the town is or of how committed the goat was. Probably both. Let's go to the numbers. Average rent around $650 per month. Cost of living 21% below the national average. Idaho doesn't tax Social Security benefits. The full amount comes to you, untouched. And then there's the Idaho Grocery Tax Credit, which is an actual program that sends eligible low-income residents, which frequently includes retirees on fixed incomes, a refund at the end of the year specifically to offset the cost of groceries. The state of Idaho is, functionally, giving some retirees money back for the act of feeding themselves. Healthcare access in a town this size is a legitimate question. The answer is that Bonners Ferry has a hospital, Boundary Community Hospital, which provides primary and emergency care and is supplemented by specialists who rotate in from larger regional centers. It's not a medical complex, it's not Mayo Clinic, but it's there, and for the primary care needs of most retirees, it's functional. What you give up is clear and should be stated plainly. There is no nightlife in Bonners Ferry in any conventional sense. There is no mall. The nearest one is technically across the state border into Washington or down into Coeur d'Alene. There is no Uber. If you need a ride in Bonners Ferry, you know someone who has a truck, or you become someone who knows someone who has a truck, which happens faster than you'd expect in a town of 2,700 where the social graph is not particularly deep. What you get is the kind of nature that people in cities pay significant money to visit temporarily. Mountains that are not background decoration but are the actual geography of your daily life. The Kootenai River. Air that is what air used to be before we had opinions about air quality. Moose that appear at the edge of the tree line, like large, judgmental wilderness therapists who are curious about your choices but not prepared to intervene. And in 2018, Bonners Ferry voted to allow ATVs on city streets, which means that retiring here potentially involves a four-wheeled vehicular renaissance that nobody told you was an option. The winter is a full commitment. Snow in Bonners Ferry does not fall, exactly. It stages a hostile takeover. You will shovel with something that looks like a medieval weapon. Snow plows will occasionally push accumulated roadside snow into your driveway in a way that feels personal, but is not. Your car will be cold enough in the morning that starting it requires a ritual patience that no app can replicate. But the mornings, the clear cold mornings with steam rising from your coffee, and the mountains white, and the river somewhere below in the valley doing its ancient indifferent thing, are genuinely extraordinary. The silence is the kind that costs money to find in almost every other context, and here it is, just the atmosphere. Free, constant, yours. Picture this. 6 in the morning. The world is frozen and white and perfectly still. You can hear the specific crunch of your boots on the snow and nothing else. The moose from last Tuesday is at the tree line again. You make eye contact. It decides you're not interesting. This is your retirement. This is Tuesday. Mountain frontier, yes, or too cold, too remote? Tell me in the comments. And if Bonners Ferry's frontier remoteness appeals to you, the next town takes remoteness and adds fossils. Actual prehistoric fossils you can hike through before breakfast. Number 7. John Day. Oregon. John Day, Oregon, is named after a man who was robbed, starved, lost in the wilderness, and still ended up with a river and a town bearing his name, which is either the most Oregonian story possible or a very specific lesson about the durability of reputation over circumstance. The town sits in Grant County, one of the least populated counties in Oregon, which is saying something in a state that has significant experience with vast emptiness between points of interest. Population just over 1,700. The air is clean in the specific way that air is clean when there are very few cars and no industry to complicate it. The vibe is vintage in the literal sense. The town has been largely the same for long enough that calling it vintage feels like understatement. Here are the numbers that matter. Rent between $600 and $750 a month. Cost of living nearly 25% below the national average. Oregon has no state sales tax. None. Zero. Your purchases cost exactly what the price tag says they cost, which is a distinction that sounds minor until you have lived on a fixed income in a state with a 10% sales tax and understood viscerally how much that number matters. Oregon also offers a property tax deferral program for seniors on limited income. You can legally defer your property taxes until you are gone, at which point the state collects from the estate. Your money stays in your pocket for as long as you are alive to use it. Healthcare access in John Day is genuinely better than the population size would suggest. The Blue Mountain Hospital District serves this region with a focus specifically on rural health access, providing primary and emergency care in a community that the state has recognized needs support. It's not a research hospital, it's not a specialist center, but it's a functioning rural hospital with real capabilities, and for most retirees' primary care needs, it's what the day requires. And then there are the fossil beds. The John Day Fossil Beds National Monument, 3 separate units of extraordinary geological significance, sits essentially in John Day's backyard. These are world-class paleontological sites. You can walk through rock formations that document 40 million years of prehistoric life. You can see, in the actual exposed strata, the evidence of species that no longer exist, and climates that no longer exist, and an entire geological chapter of what Oregon used to be before Oregon decided to be what it is now. You can hike through this, before breakfast, for free, as a retired person in a town where your rent is $700 a month. What you give up is everything that requires infrastructure density. The internet in John Day is what the internet was before anyone got serious about it. Functional for basics, aspirational for streaming, and entirely inappropriate for any task that requires sustained bandwidth. Netflix is a rumor. Video calls are an experiment. Ordering specialty groceries online involves a timeline that reframes your relationship with patience. There is no Thai food. There is chicken fried steak. There is good coffee if you know which counter to go to. There are neighbors who will invite you over for elk stew and political opinions, both of which are provided in quantities that exceed what you ordered. But here is what John Day has, that no amount of infrastructure can manufacture. It is quiet in a way that is not the absence of sound, but the presence of something else. The feeling of being in a place that has not been optimized, has not been curated, has not been arranged for anyone's consumption. It just exists, on its own terms. In the high desert of Central Oregon, surrounded by fossil beds, serving chicken fried steak, and getting you a property tax deferral that keeps your money in your account until you're done with it. Picture this: a Saturday morning in October. You pull on a jacket and drive 10 minutes to the Painted Hills unit of the monument. The hills are striped in red and gold and black and ochre, the colors of different geological epochs made visible by erosion. Nobody else is there. You walk in silence through 40 million years of history. You are retired. Your rent is $700. The hills are free. The fossil beds are free. The silence is free. This is what living simply, cheaply, and fully looks like when the geography cooperates. Fossil beds and freedom, or needs more civilization? Drop it below. And if hiking through prehistory sounds like a reasonable Tuesday, wait until the next town, which built its whole identity on trains, tunnels, and a broken economic dream that accidentally made it one of the most affordable retirement destinations on the East Coast. Number 6. Cumberland, Maryland. Cumberland, Maryland has a downtown that looks like a film set. Historic brick buildings, a pedestrian mall, an actual 19th century train station, antique shops with hand-lettered signs, cafes with the particular character of places that have been serving the same regulars for decades and have no particular interest in expanding the demographic. The feeling you get walking Cumberland's downtown is that you've arrived after the main period of activity, but before anyone has gotten around to changing anything. The architecture stayed. The bones stayed. The sense of a place that used to be significantly more than it currently is stayed, in the most charming possible way, like a very beautiful book that is missing some of its middle chapters. Here's what Cumberland offers behind the aesthetics. Average monthly rent of $731. A number so specific that it feels like someone ran the math and landed there precisely. Cost of living 27% below the national average. Maryland provides generous property tax credits for residents over 65, pension income exclusions that keep more of your fixed income in your pocket, and Social Security benefits are fully exempt from Maryland's state income tax. The healthcare situation is one of Cumberland's genuine strengths. Western Maryland Health System operates here with a regional medical center that serves this mountain corner of Maryland with capabilities that significantly exceed what a city of 19,000 would typically support. Maryland's state-regulated hospital rate system, a structure that caps what hospitals can charge in ways that most states don't attempt, means that the healthcare you access in Cumberland operates within cost controls that your budget can actually account for. Cumberland sits in a mountain bowl, the Allegheny Mountains surrounding it on multiple sides, creating the kind of geography that makes every weather system interesting and makes the fall foliage in October almost aggressively beautiful. The C&O Canal ends here, or begins here depending on which direction you're walking, meaning that 184 miles of flat towpath trail extends from Cumberland's backyard all the way to Washington, D.C., one of the great trail systems in the eastern United States, free, maintained by the National Park Service, accessible from your retirement address. The trade-off in Cumberland is what the trade-off always is in places like this. The economic momentum that once made Cumberland a significant railroad hub dissipated when the railroad's significance dissipated, and the downtown that was built for a larger and more commercially active population now operates at a lower level of occupancy than its architecture anticipated. The exciting restaurant is not a category that fully applies. Wi-Fi speeds in certain parts of town will reacquaint you with the emotional experience of 2007 internet connectivity. Amazon Prime arrives when it arrives. But the mortgage on a house here is lower than the rent on an apartment in most East Coast cities. The hiking is extraordinary. The train station still stands and is beautiful, and Amtrak's Cardinal Line stops here, connecting Cumberland to Washington, D.C. and Chicago. And the mountain fog in the morning, rolling over the ridge lines and settling into the valley, is not something you can put a price on, though living here costs less than almost anywhere else in Maryland, so effectively you're getting it cheap. Picture this: 6:30 in the morning. You're on a porch built before your parents were born. Flannel, coffee, no debt, no traffic. The fog is doing something extraordinary, with the light on the mountain ridge to the west, and a crow is making a sound in the elm tree that suggests it has opinions about your morning plans. You have no morning plans. You are retired in Cumberland, Maryland, where the rent is $731, and the mountains are included. Appalachian charm gets me or needs more energy? Tell me in the comments. And if Cumberland feels almost too quiet, the next town is going to confirm your suspicions. It's higher, colder, and bragging about it. Number 5. Bluefield, West Virginia. Bluefield, West Virginia has a marketing slogan that is, by the standards of municipal marketing, the most aggressively honest thing a town has ever said about itself. Nature's air-conditioned city. That is the actual slogan. Bluefield sits at an elevation of approximately 2,600 feet in the Appalachian Mountains, and the altitude produces summer temperatures that genuinely, measurably differ from the surrounding lowlands. The city has a tradition of giving away free lemonade on any summer day that exceeds 90 degrees Fahrenheit, a tradition that was established in 1939 and continues because the days that qualify are rare enough to be treated as events. This is a town that has turned its weather into a point of pride by leaning into the fact that it is, by West Virginia mountain standards, cold. Not cold like Alaska, cold like you can sleep with the windows open in July, cold like you don't need central air in a way that actually reduces your utility bills. Cold like the summer other places are suffering through is just a pleasant season in Bluefield. Let's talk numbers. Average rent around $600 a month. And in Bluefield that number has emotional weight because the median household income here is modest, and $600 is calibrated to what the local economy can actually support. Cost of living 29% below the national average. Crime rate significantly below the West Virginia state average, which puts it well below national average comparisons that might initially concern you. And then there's the tax situation, which changed meaningfully in 2022. West Virginia, which previously taxed Social Security income, began phasing out that tax for most retirees, in a process that is now effectively complete for the majority of people living on fixed incomes. The phase-out was deliberate. West Virginia looked at its retiring population and made a policy choice that what they needed was their full check. The full check is now largely what they get. Healthcare in this corner of West Virginia is anchored by Mercer Health, which serves the region with a hospital system that includes significant primary and specialist care. The area's designation as a rural healthcare access zone means federal and state resources are specifically directed here to ensure that healthcare availability doesn't collapse the way it has in parts of rural America, where the market economics of hospital operation made continued operation impossible. What Bluefield asks of you in exchange for all of this is the willingness to live somewhere that has not been on the cultural radar for approximately 30 years. There is no yoga studio. There is no artisan anything. There is Appalachian food, which is its own legitimate culinary tradition that rewards exploration. There are porches. There are people who will talk to you at the diner without being asked, and who mean it as hospitality rather than intrusion. And there is the mountain air, which at 2,600 feet, has a quality that people pay significant money to access for a weekend, and which is just the atmosphere in Bluefield, present and free, cold enough in July to sleep with the windows open. Picture this, a June morning, you step outside to get the paper, or whatever the contemporary equivalent of getting the paper is for you, and it is 62 degrees. The mountains are green in every direction. There is mist in the lower valleys. You are wearing a light jacket because the air requires it, and you chose this because the air requires it. You go back inside. You make something on the stove. You have nowhere to be and the air conditioning isn't running because it is June in Bluefield, West Virginia, and you don't need it. That is nature's air-conditioned city, delivering exactly what the slogan promises. Nature's air conditioning sold me, or I need warmth to function. Drop it in the comments. And if Bluefield's mountain cool sounds right, the next town takes the concept of off-grid retirement and moves it to the actual desert. 3 hours from Walmart, next to the Rio Grande. Rent under $600. Number 4. Presidio, Texas. Presidio, Texas is 3 hours from the nearest Walmart. This is information that Presidio presents neither apologetically nor boastfully, but simply as a fact of geography. In the same tone it would use to tell you that the elevation is 2,594 feet, and the Rio Grande is right there and Mexico is right across it, and the Chinati Mountains are to the north. And this is where you are now, in the far reaches of the Trans-Pecos, in a town of about 4,000 people where the nearest chain anything requires a meaningful expedition. Median rent approximately $580 a month, 30% below the national average for cost of living. Texas has no state income tax, none, for anything, for anyone, including every dollar of your Social Security check. And Texas law provides a property tax freeze for homeowners 65 and over. Once you qualify, your property taxes are fixed at that level for as long as you own the home. Your housing costs stop aging when you do. In an environment of rising property values and rising tax assessments, this is a protection that is worth considerably more than it appears on paper. Crime in Presidio is low, genuinely low, not statistically massaged low. The town is small enough that anonymity is not available and accountability is ambient. Everyone knows the context of everything that happens because everyone knows everyone and the context is shared. This is either a feature or a limitation depending on your disposition, and Presidio will show you which it is within about a month. The winters in Presidio are mild. The Chihuahuan Desert at this latitude and elevation produces winter weather that people in the northern two-thirds of the country would describe as comfortable. Daytime temperatures in the 50s and 60s. Clear days in a frequency that the American interior doesn't match. Summers are hot in the full West Texas commitment. The desert is not apologetic about summer, but the low humidity makes the heat more manageable than coastal comparisons suggest, and the evenings cool with the desert's characteristic efficiency. What Presidio offers that no amount of urban amenity can replicate is the specific experience of vast space. The Trans-Pecos landscape is enormous in a way that recalibrates your sense of scale. The sky is the largest sky you've likely ever lived under. The stars at night are the stars that stars were before light pollution became a feature of the American environment. Big Bend National Park is nearby, genuinely one of the extraordinary wilderness areas in the United States, accessible from Presidio in a way that makes it a regular outing rather than a special occasion. Your Amazon order will arrive when it arrives. The grocery options lean toward the practical rather than the aspirational. The food requires some creativity if your diet has specific requirements. But your rent is $580 a month in a state that doesn't touch your Social Security check and a town that freezes your property taxes the moment you qualify. Picture this: 5:30 in the morning, before the heat arrives. You sit outside with coffee in a silence that is genuinely total. No traffic, no sirens, no background hum of civilization at work. The Rio Grande is a mile away, moving in the dark toward the Gulf of Mexico. The mountains to the north are beginning to define themselves against a sky that is going from black to the particular dark blue that precedes dawn. Mexico is right across the river. The border is quiet. Everything is quiet. This is the opting out that most retirement fantasies gesture at but rarely deliver. In Presidio, at $580 a month, with no state income tax and frozen property taxes, it's actually available. Desert solitude is the dream, or 3 hours from Walmart is too far? Tell me below. And if Presidio felt like beautiful isolation, the next town wraps that isolation in banjo music and adds pie. Which is not a metaphor. Number 3. Mountain View. Arkansas. Mountain View, Arkansas calls itself the folk music capital of the world. Before you dismiss that as the kind of thing every small American town claims about something, the chili capital, the peach capital, the place that invented something nobody needed naming, understand that Mountain View might actually have the credentials. There is live folk music played in the courthouse square multiple times a week. Not programmed music, not a sound system, not a festival. People show up with instruments and play because that is what people do here, and have done here, for long enough that it's not a tradition, so much as a condition. You walk through Mountain View, and music is present the way weather is present. Not always, not identically, but consistently, as a feature of the environment rather than a scheduled event. The retirement numbers here are extraordinary. Median rent around $575 a month. Cost of living 27% below the national average. Violent crime rate approximately 1/3 of the national average. A figure that means your biggest statistical health risk in Mountain View is the fried pie at the local bakery, which is a genuine risk worth knowing about. Arkansas does not tax Social Security income. The state homestead exemption provides additional property value reduction for residents over 65. Low-income senior property tax credits layer on top of that. What this adds up to, for a retiree living on $800 a month, is something that looks mathematically impossible from inside a city budget. Your rent is $575. Your Social Security is untaxed. Your property taxes are reduced. You have access to healthcare through the White River Medical Center system in the surrounding region. And you live in a town in the Ozark Mountains, where the air is clean, the pace is human, and someone near the courthouse square is probably playing dulcimer right now. Mountain View does not move quickly. This is not a criticism or a caution. It is a description of the fundamental character of the place and the primary reason it functions as a retirement destination. The internet is slow. Not occasionally slow, not slow during peak hours. Slow as a structural condition of being in the Ozark Mountains in a town of 2,800 people that has not been the recipient of significant infrastructure investment, because infrastructure investment tends to follow population density, and Mountain View has made its peace with the population it has. If you have spent decades in an environment optimized for speed and access, and the frictionless delivery of everything you need, exactly when you need it, Mountain View will require an adjustment period. The adjustment period is real. On the other side of it, according to people who have made it through, is something that costs a great deal of money to access anywhere else, and is simply the atmosphere in Mountain View, free and continuous, and occasionally featuring a 78-year-old absolutely shredding a mandolin in the town square. Picture this. Saturday morning in October. The Ozarks are in full fall color. The kind of fall color that makes people drive hours to look at it, except you live inside it. You walk to the courthouse square with a coffee you made at home, because the coffee shop is fine, but you make better coffee. Someone is playing fiddle. Someone else has a banjo. A third person has materialized with something that might be a dulcimer and a very specific idea about what key this should be in. It's beautiful. The air smells like wood smoke from somewhere, and the leaves are coming down slow in no particular wind. Your rent is $575. Your social security check arrived untouched. The music is free. Folk music and Ozark Mountains. I'm in or needs faster internet. Comments are open. And if Mountain View's Ozark pace appeals to you, the next town takes that pace, removes the banjo, adds 12 feet of snow annually, and still somehow makes the math work better than most of America. Number 2. Ironwood, Michigan. Ironwood, Michigan is in the Upper Peninsula, which is itself a geographic clarification that requires context for anyone who learned Michigan from a map and thought the mitten shape was the whole story. The Upper Peninsula is a separate piece of land connected to the rest of Michigan by the Mackinac Bridge and otherwise oriented toward Wisconsin and Lake Superior in ways that give it a cultural and climatic identity entirely its own. Ironwood sits in the far western end of the Upper Peninsula, close enough to Wisconsin that the cultural overlap is genuine, far enough from anything that the word remote applies without exaggeration. Population under 5,000. The nearest urban center of any significance requires a drive that most people in the lower 48 would consider a trip rather than a commute. Let's go to the numbers. Median rent around $600 per month. Median home price under $90,000. You can own in Ironwood for less than the down payment on a median-priced home in most American metropolitan areas. Cost of living 27% below the national average. Michigan exempts Social Security income from state tax. Low-income seniors have access to meaningful property tax reductions through state programs that the Upper Peninsula's economic profile, which has always been modest, makes available to a significant portion of the retired population. Crime in Ironwood is low in the genuine way that crime is low in small communities, where everyone knows everyone, and the social accountability that produces is ambient and effective. The local wildlife is a more consistent presence in local incident reporting than human mischief. Black bears, deer, the occasional adventure involving something larger from the surrounding forest. Healthcare is served by Asperus Ironwood Hospital, a critical access hospital that provides primary and emergency care in a region that has been the recipient of rural healthcare investment, specifically because the Upper Peninsula's population and geography make hospital access a policy priority that cannot be ignored. For most retired people's primary care needs, it's there and it's functional. And then there is the snow. Ironwood gets more snow annually than Anchorage, Alaska. That sentence should be allowed to stand alone for a moment before we proceed. Ironwood, Michigan, a small town in the Upper Peninsula, gets more annual snowfall than the largest city in Alaska. The lake effect snow off Lake Superior arrives in quantities and with a commitment that makes the term snow accumulation seem inadequate. You will shovel. You will shovel with tools that look more substantial than you expected when you bought them. The plow will create situations at the end of your driveway that require their own shoveling. You will develop an intimate relationship with your snowblower, a relationship built on dependency and grudging respect. The people of Ironwood have lived inside this for generations. They are not bothered by it. They have the correct equipment and the correct footwear and the correct attitude, which is that weather is a condition of the environment, and the environment is the environment, and you dress for it and continue with your life. The silence that snow produces, the way it muffles everything, the way a fresh snowfall creates a specific acoustic environment that is unlike any other, is something Ironwood residents have access to for approximately 6 months of the year, which is either a feature or a limitation depending on your relationship with silence. But in the months that aren't winter, the Upper Peninsula is genuinely extraordinary. Lake Superior is visible from the hills above Ironwood. The forests are enormous. The hiking and skiing infrastructure. Ironwood is near several ski areas that attract visitors from a wide region, gives the outdoor recreation calendar a breadth that pure summer-only locations can't match. And the people who have chosen to be here, in the far western Upper Peninsula with 12 feet of snow and no Costco, are there because they chose it, which produces a specific community quality that transient or accidental populations don't generate. Picture this. February morning, 7 degrees. The snow is doing what snow does here, which is everything. You are inside with coffee and a window view of pine trees that are white to their branches, and the world is absolutely silent in the particular way that a significant snowfall creates silence. Total, complete, like being inside something rather than outside it. Your rent is $600. Your Social Security arrived untouched. The snow is not your enemy. It is the atmosphere. It is the condition of the life you chose. A local put it simply, half the year it's snowing. The other half we're recovering from the snow. But I can afford steak, and nobody honks at me. So yeah, I'm good. Upper Peninsula, yes. I have snow tires, or 12 feet of snow is not a feature. Tell me in the comments. And if Ironwood's frozen beauty appeals to you even a little, the #1 town on this list is going to seal the deal. It has prairies instead of snow. It has heart-shaped street signs. It has the most unexpectedly poetic name in Nebraska, and it will stretch your Social Security farther than you believe is currently possible. Number 1. Valentine, Nebraska. Valentine, Nebraska. Population 2,600. Named with the specific romance of a place that knew what it was doing when it picked its identity. Heart-shaped street signs. Actual hearts worked into the municipal branding. A town in the Nebraska Sandhills that committed to the bit entirely and has been living it ever since, with the cheerful confidence of a place that has no self-consciousness about what it decided to be. You've probably never considered Valentine, Nebraska as a retirement destination. You have probably, if you're being honest, never considered Valentine, Nebraska at all. This is appropriate and also exactly the point. Median rent, $550 a month. Let that number settle. $550 a month in the 21st century American housing market for a real home in a real town with real neighbors who will wave at you for reasons that are unclear but consistent and will make your week in a way that nothing digital replicates. Median home price around $115,000. Ownership, actual ownership, of a home in a town you live in, for the price that gets you a down payment in most American cities and a studio apartment lease in the expensive ones. Cost of living 25% below the national average. Crime rate, low in the way that a town of 2,600 people in the Nebraska Sandhills, where everyone knows everyone is going to be low. Which is to say that the main wildlife crime statistics involve white-tailed deer doing things near roads that they probably shouldn't, and the human crime statistics are sufficiently modest that the local law enforcement has time to wave at people they recognize, which is everyone. Nebraska does tax Social Security income, and this should be stated plainly because the other 9 towns on this list mostly don't. However, and this is where the math becomes interesting rather than discouraging, Valentine's property tax relief programs for seniors, combined with the general assistance programs available to fixed-income retirees in Nebraska, and most importantly the base cost of living that is 25% below the national average, means that even with state tax on your Social Security, your effective financial position in Valentine often exceeds your position in states that don't tax Social Security but have higher costs for everything else. The math on retirement is never just the tax line. The math is all the lines added together, and Valentine's lines add up in your favor. The Niobrara River runs near Valentine, a nationally designated wild and scenic river that provides some of the best canoeing and kayaking in the Great Plains, surrounded by the distinctive landscape of the Sandhills, a region of grass-stabilized dunes that covers a quarter of Nebraska and looks like nothing else in America. This is your backyard. The river is free. The landscape is free. The fishing requires a license that costs a responsible fraction of what a weekend trip to access equivalent fishing would cost from any urban starting point. The social life in Valentine operates on a frequency that requires calibration if you're coming from somewhere with more options. The Dairy Queen closes at 9. The local events calendar includes a fish fry that is genuinely well attended, and a bingo night that becomes, on certain evenings, something that locals describe with the gravity of a significant cultural event. The restaurants serve food that is excellent in the specific way that small-town diners serving their community, rather than their Yelp rating, are excellent. What Valentine gives you that cannot be found anywhere with a higher cost of living is space. Literal, physical, metaphysical space. Room to breathe. Room to exist at the pace that your body after decades of work is asking to exist at. Room between you and the next person. Room in your budget at the end of the month. Room in your schedule because the schedule is yours and nobody is filling it. One Valentine resident, asked what she would tell someone considering moving there, said, "My neighbor borrowed my snowblower last February and returned it with a plate of cookies. If you hate that kind of thing, this town isn't for you. If you hate that kind of thing, this town isn't for you." That sentence contains everything you need to know about whether Valentine is the right answer for your retirement, and nothing you don't. Picture this. Morning in Valentine, Nebraska. The wind is moving through the prairie grass in the way that wind moves through prairie grass, which is unlike any other sound the wind makes. Two deer are doing something in the field across the road that involves a great deal of considered movement. The sheriff drives past and waves. You don't know why, you haven't done anything, but it makes the morning feel accounted for, recognized, part of something that has its own quiet continuity. Your rent is $550. Your coffee cost whatever coffee costs when you make it yourself, which is almost nothing. The Niobrara is 20 minutes away. The stars last night were the stars that stars are when there's no competing light for 100 miles. You are retired. You are in Valentine, Nebraska. The heart-shaped street sign at the corner is not ironic. It is just what the signs look like here. The town meant it. Valentine, Nebraska is the one, or I need more options within driving distance. Drop it in the comments. And be honest. Because the whole point of this list is honesty about what's actually available versus what you've been told is available. And those two things are not always the same. 8 towns. 8 versions of what retirement actually looks like when the math works. Not the retirement in the commercial, the one with the silver-haired couple walking on a beach that costs more per month than your mortgage. Not the retirement the financial industry sells you, the one requiring numbers that require most people's entire working lives to accumulate and still might not be sufficient. The retirement where $800 a month is enough. Where your Social Security check stretches into something that covers the rent and the groceries and the hot spring soak and still leaves room for the coffee on the porch and the fishing license and the occasional diner meal that somebody made with their hands and meant it. None of these places are perfect. Every single one of them asks something of you. Remoteness, cold, heat, quiet, the absence of things you're used to having. The Whole Foods is not coming. The Uber is not coming. The restaurant with 7 different kinds of oat milk is definitely not coming. But the porch is there, the pie is there. The neighbor with the snowblower who returns it with cookies is there. The mineral spring that costs $10 is there. The fossil beds are there. The river is there, the stars are there, uncompeted with and enormous and free every single night. The retirement brochure shows you costs a number most people can't reach. The retirement these towns offer costs $550 to $750 a month, and asks in return that you be willing to live in a place the rest of the economy hasn't found yet. Most people won't do it. Most people will stay where they are, paying what they pay, and tell themselves that this is just what retirement costs now. But if you're watching this video, if you made it to the end of this list, you already know that isn't entirely true. You've seen the alternatives. You've done the arithmetic. You know that Truth or Consequences is a real place, and Valentine is a real place, and the hot spring costs $10, and the rent is $550, and nobody is coming to raise it, because nobody is coming at all. The question is just whether you want to go. Like this video if any of these towns made you open a new tab. Subscribe because this channel is the economic exit ramp. The information that exists before the thing everyone says is inevitable actually becomes inevitable. And tell me in the comments, which one is it? Which town on this list made you stop and do the math? I'll see you in the next one.